This is called Before the Ages of Man, Timeline Series 1, by a Cantar of Shimmerine. Before man came to rule Tamriel, and before the chronicles of the historians recorded the affairs of the rulers of Tamriel, the events of our world are known only through the myths and legends, and through the divinely inspired teachings of the Nine Divines. For convenience, historians divided the distant ages of prehistory into two broad periods of time: the Dawn Era and the Mythic Era. The Dawn Era. The Dawn Era is the period before the beginning of mortal time, when the feats of the gods take place. The Dawn Era ends with the exodus of the gods and magic from the world and the founding of the Adamantine Tower. The term Merethic comes from the Nordic, literally era of the elves. The Merethic era is the prehistoric time after the exodus of the gods and magic from the world at the founding of the Adamantine Tower, and before the arrival of Ysgramor and the Nords in Tamriel. The following are the most notable events of the Dawn Era, presented roughly in sequence as it must be understood by creatures of time such as ourselves. The cosmos formed from Ouroboros, chaos or totality, by Anu and Padme Akatosh or Oriel, formed and time began. The gods et Ada formed. Lorcan convinced or tricked the gods into creating the mortal plane, nirn. The mortal plane was at this point highly magical and dangerous, as the gods walked the physical makeup of the mortal plane, and even the timeless community of existence itself became unstable. When Magic, or Magnus, architect of the plans for the mortal world, decided to terminate the project, the gods convened at the Adamantine Tower, Durrani Tower, the oldest known structure in Tamriel, and decided what to do. Most left when magic did. Others sacrificed themselves into other forms so that they might stay the Elenovni. Lorcan was condemned by the gods to exile in the mortal realms, and his heart was torn out of his chest and cast from the tower, where it landed in a volcano and formed with magic, in the mythic sense, gone. The cosmos stabilized, elven history, finally linear, began. Merethic Era, 2500. The Merethic Era. The Merethic Era was figured by early Nord scholars as a series of years, numbered in reverse order backwards from their beginning of time. The founding of the Cameronian dynasty, recorded as year 0 of the First Era. The prehistoric events of the Merethic Era are listed here with their traditional Nordic Merethic Era dates. The earliest Merethic date cited by King Harold, scholar, was Merethic Era 2500, the North reckoning of the first year of time. As such, the Merethic Era extends from Merethic Era 2500 in the distant past to ME1, the year before the founding of the Cameronian dynasty and the establishment of the White Gold Tower as an independent city-state. According to King Harold's bards, Merethic Era 2500 was the date of construction of the Adamantine Tower on Bellefiele Island in High Rock, the oldest known structure of Tamriel. This corresponds roughly to the earliest historic dates given various unpublished Elvish chronicles. During the early Merethic Era, the abnormality of Beast People of Tamriel, the ancestors of the Khajiit, Argonian, Orcish, and other beast folk, lived in pre-literate communities throughout Tamriel. In the Middle Merethic Era, the Aldemari, mortals of elven origin, refugees left their doomed and now lost continent of Aldemaris, also known as Old Nolfini, and settled in southwest Tamriel. The first colonies were distributed at wide intervals on islands along the entire coast of Tamriel. Later, inland settlements were founded primarily in fertile lowlands in southwest and central Tamriel. Wherever the beast folk encountered the elves, the sophisticated, literate, technologically advanced Aldemari cultures displaced the primitive beast folk into the jungles, marshes, mountains, and wastelands. The Adamantine Tower was rediscovered and captured by the Direni, a prominent and powerful Aldemari clan. The Crystal Tower was built on the Somerset Isle and later White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil. During the Middle Merethic era, Aldemari explorers mapped the coasts of Vardenfell, building the first era High Elven Wizard Towers at Ald Redania, Balfell, Tel Arin, and Tel Mora in Morrowind. It was also during this period that the Ayleid, or wild elf settlements, flourished in jungles surrounding the White Gold Tower, present-day Cyrodiil. Wild elves, also known as the Heartland High Elves, preserved the Dawn-era magics and languages of the Ethelni, established a tribute land to the High King of Alinor. The Heartland's long line of communication from the Somerset Isles sovereignty efficiently isolated Cyrodiil from the High Kings at Crystal Tower. The late Middle Merethic era is the period of the High Velothi culture. The Chimmer, ancestors of modern Dunmer or Dark Elves, were dynamic, ambitious, long-lived elven clans devoted to fundamental ancestor worship. The Chimmer clans followed the prophet Pheloth out of the ancestral elven homeland in the southwest to settle into lands now known as Morrowind. Despising their secular culture and profane practices of Dwemer, the Chimmer also coveted the lands of resources of the Dwemer, and for centuries provoked them with minor raids and territorial disputes. The Dwemer, or the Dwarves, free-thinking, reclusive elven clans devoted their secrets of science, engineering, and alchemy, established underground cities and communities in the mountain ranges, later the Velothi Mountains separating modern-day Skyrim and Morrowind. The late Merethic era marked the precipice decline of the Velothi culture. Some Velothi settled in villages near declining and abandoned ancient Velothi towers. During this period, Velothi high culture disappeared on Vardenfell Island. The earliest Dwemer freehold colonies date from this period. Degenerate Velothi devolved into tribal cultures, which in this time evolved into the modern great houses of Morrowind, or persisted as the barbarian Ashlander tribes. The only surviving traces of the tribal culture are scattered Velothi towers and Ashlander nomads on Vardenfell Island. The original First Era High Elven Wizard Tower along the coasts of Tamriel were also abandoned about this time. It was in the late Merethic era that the pre-literate humans, the so-called Nedic people, from the continent of Admora, also Admoro means elder wood in Aldemaris, migrated and settled in northern Tamriel. The Nord culture, Euro Ysgramor, leader of a great colonizing fleet to Tamriel, is credited with developing a runic transcription of Nord speech based on Elvish principles. And so Ysgramor is considered the first human historian. Ysgramor's fleet landed at Yarskid Head, at the extreme northern tip of Skyrim's Broken Cape. The Nords built their legendary city of Sarthal. The elves drove the men away during the Night of Tears, but Ysgramor soon returned with his 500 companions. Also, during the late Merethic era, the legendary immortal hero warrior, sorcerer, and king known as Perennial Whitestrake, Harold, Harry Breeks, Ysmir, Hans the Fox, etc., this is a bit of a short video.